Hello, everyone. This is not going to be a lecture. This is going to be a discussion session with two toy designers. I am Dr. Supradip Das, Assistant Professor at the Department of Design. And in my right, I have Miss Antara Lodha and Miss Mahi Khare. And I request both of them to introduce herself.
Hello everyone, my name is Antara Lodha and I'm a toy and game designer. I have previously worked at companies like Smartivity and I've also done a bunch of freelance toy design projects for other companies. I have a bachelor's from NIF Delhi and a master's in design from NID Ahmedabad.
Hi everyone, my name is Mahi Khare. Currently, I am in academics, but previously I have worked as a toy designer and I have 2+ years of experience. I've been associated with Rubberboo Toys before. I have done my education in product design and then I did my master's in design research, and both I did in NIFT.
So, first of all, let us understand toy design culture in industry. So, my question is, do they really follow child developmental aspects in industry?
Basically, they don't directly say that we have to follow these child developmental aspects, especially in the industries that I have worked in. But toys, when you see in the market also, they have very strict age, categorization, whether it's 3 plus, 6 plus, 7 plus, or 7 to 12. This kind of specifies how much development there would have happened so far already. And with toy design it's very simple, like if the toys do not match the development of the child, it's going to fail. It has to be just challenging enough for it to be fun and not so simple that it becomes boring. So if you don't follow it, then there's no way that it's going to work in the industry, in my opinion.
To add to it, Antara, I have also observed that if there's a company, it is very important for them to target a certain age group. And if you will see in the brands that are already existing, they actually look at a specific age group and then develop toys accordingly. A lot of times we have also observed that a company might be catering to a certain age group, maybe they are looking at toddlers, but if they want to expand to other age groups, they completely change the brand look and feel of the toy and how it is supposed to go in the market and what are the channels that they sell through. So when we look at industry, yes, it is very important to see what kind of age group you are looking at, and at the same time you have to do a background study, you have to research on what are the certain attributes or aspects of child development when you're developing or designing any toy.
Right. I think this is also the requirement for the from the standards for any countries, right?
Standards as in?
A requirement for the standards that you have to mention
Ha ha.
what child.
Absolutely. You have to, like, when you're selling the toy in the market, when you're marketing, it is absolutely important
Right.
that is important as a standard. And it's easy for parents also to understand what needs to be bought.
Right.
So, age case, like, according to age, definitely they do follow developmental goals that a child has, but they don't specifically say that we are going to work on this, or this is specifically a toy is going to be catering to overall development. Definitely, however, there are certain brands who will categorize, for example, especially for younger ages, for example 3 plus ages, 3 to 6. 6 plus may, like, I haven't seen it that much, but for 3 to 6, if they're giving activity kits, they might break it up into, okay, this particular activity is going to help with language and communication, this particular thing is going to help with fine motor skills, because parents do, at that young an age group, parents do recognize that, oh, my child is not talking, or my child does not have a good grip yet, and they want to make sure that, development happens, and they like to use play activities to do it. So at that age category, I have seen people specifically mention, like brands specifically mention, that this is the development that this is going to help.
Great. My next question is, do they follow play theories?
In terms of development again?
Yes.
Okay.
For example, as I understand, industry is working on toy design specifically to make something, right? And academia, in contrast, they are developing theories, right? So to what extent academic theories they apply in making toy design?
So, like today, there are two things that the audience that you're looking at, of course, the child is not going to go and buy the toy. It's the parents who are going to go and buy the product for their children. And today, the audience, that is the parents, they are quite aware about what is available in the market, what is good for their child, as well as they also read what is upcoming, if there are any trends, or if there's something that is going on and their child should also be at par with it. The other side of it is that the education system itself looks at a lot of play based pedagogies. So if you see, NCRT comes up with a lot of studies. So
Right.
yes, in that case, we do look at play theories, and we also try to match up and try to see what NCRT suggests or what other nationally recognized child development authorities say, and accordingly we try to adopt it when we design a particular toy.
In my experience, what has happened is that when they hire designers, because you have that kind of background that you can do this kind of research and you know how to do research or you've studied this subject, they expect you to know these things. They will not specifically tell you that you need to apply this theory. And these theories have also come from observation. So whether or not you're intentionally doing it, or you've seen like there is a toy missing in my rooster, for example, a toy does not have like a brand does not have any blocks etc that they want to add, so they will add those blocks etc. So automatically it's going to help with, say, their planning, constructionist theory comes into play. So even if they're not thinking about using a theory, it can be seen that a particular product is going to help with that kind of development. Another thing certain brands do is, now this is not all brands, they will orient themselves around a school of thought. So for example, if you go online and you look for Montessori toys, you will see a lot of toys which kind of follow that kind of thinking. So it definitely depends on how the brand wants to orient themselves and what kind of toys they want in their rooster.
I think to add to it, like if a industry is hiring a toy designer, they actually expect them to know these things and then join, because that is a differentiating point for a toy designer from regular product or industrial designer.
Great. So my next query is on standards. So to what extent industry follows standards?
So there are a lot of regulations, such as BSI is one of them, and then
BIS.
Yeah, BIS.
BIS
BIS.
is one of them. And there are a lot of standardization that looks at different attributes. So for example, if you're developing a toy for a younger age group, they will look at if the toy has soft corners, or if it has certain materials that can impact the health of a child. Even for senior children, or like children who are at a older age group, there are certain standardizations that are followed. And it is true that if these standards are not at par, your design or the toy can actually get rejected. So then when we are developing a toy, we have to keep in consideration these aspects or these attributes while designing itself, so that during production we don't end up having the entire batch getting rejected.
I agree. Definitely, the government has become a lot more stricter. I remember, I think a couple of years ago, there was a mass recall of toys because a lot of the brands were not following standards or they had not gotten certification from BIS. That is also very important. So definitely, when you ask to what extent they are followed very strictly.
Great.
Otherwise, your product is not going to go into the market only. And even if it does reach the market and there's some problem, there will be mass recall. So there's no way you cannot not follow standards. And to make sure that you follow standards, there are multiple checks within your design process in industries. So when you're doing product development also, you will have to do internal testing that it passes your internal QC. Once you do that, once it reaches the internal QC, then they will at their end make sure that it passes BIS standards. Before that, they will not send it to BIS only, because that is added financial pressure on them. The
Okay.
number of times you get it tested, the amount of times you have to pay for the testing. So they're very strictly followed.
Since you have mentioned about QC, so I am keen to know about the QC system or the protocol they follow, if you would like to mention.
Okay, so like I said, design process. After the design process, once you've handed it over to the production team, there are multiple checks at every level. So if it is, for example, you've sent something for printing outside or in-house, after the printed products come, there will be random checks in the lots.
Right.
They will pick out, say, 5 or 6 lots, from which they will pick out 3 to 4 products to test. In case there is a problem in any one of them, then they're going to do 100% check.
Okay.
So this is when outsourced things come back into your factory. Then within the factory, as your processes, after each step there will be random checks, and at the end of packaging also they will pull out, like, say, 5 or 6 boxes to check if everything is packaged correctly. And the same process follows. If there is a reject in any one of those lots, then there's 100% check. And if there is any problem, then there is a separate team which is put aside, which is going to, say, take out parts that are still usable. Like, for example, there might be some part which is malfunctioning, so then they will remove that one part, and then they will see what all can be salvaged from the product and then reused. So that is the process that I have followed. Is there?
In my case, it's quite similar. The only thing is that in my case, we used to manufacture in-house, and in any industry where the product is getting made inside the factory itself, which is under the brand, they do quality check in terms of material as well. So when you source a material and when it comes to you in-house, you check whether the quality of the material is right. A lot of times, if you find that it does not matches the regular standard, we end up actually rejecting the entire lot of raw material. Once we have the raw material, then at different developmental stages of the product, there are multiple checks in terms of quality, wear and tear of the product, whether the product is breakable or not, which is very important. In my case, the products were not made out of any material that was supposed to break. So in that case, if anything is coming out of the product, then of course that is a red flag. Once the entire product is made, then we do a quality check in terms of the packaging. So we look at the print quality, we look at whether the product will be safe. So we also do crash testing, where we pack the entire product and then we throw it across, or we try to see if it wears or tears. There's also one thing that we do in-house during testing, is that once the entire batch is ready, we do random checks of different cartons. So you pick a random carton, you pick a random product out of it, and if the product is good, then the entire batch gets a go ahead. If it is not, then the entire batch gets ejected. So yes, quality checks and the entire process, it's very tedious, as well as it is very critical for any company, because that actually also helps you to establish the brand's image when it goes out in the market.
Yeah.
Nice. So next is the moment of truth. So here we would like to know, what does the industry look for when hiring designers, specifically toy designers? So what kind of questions they ask, what kind of qualities they look for?
So in my case, in all of the hiring processes for toy companies, they have given us a design brief. They will give you a brief. They'll ask you to do a project, whether in 3 days or a week, it depends from company to company. And I have also given such tasks to people sometimes. But when we are evaluating those tasks, we usually first, of course, look at the ability of the designer to follow the design brief. Have they been able to accomplish what we've asked them to do? Then always we ask them to explain their design process to us, because more than a 3-day deliverable, because obviously you're not going to design a toy and deliver a toy in 3 days in the industry. Everybody understands that. We want to understand how you think. We want to see if where the creativity and the innovation is coming in your abilities. Then it, of course, design skills. How many iterations were you able to make out of one idea? And at the end, of course, technical skills are also very important. there are certain things that you can pick up on the job. There are certain softwares that you can pick up on the job. But basics you need to know. You need to know at least one or two of the softwares that the company already uses. You need to understand different mechanisms, especially if the company that you're working for, is looking for those kind of things.
Could you please name some of the softwares what they should know?
So, for example, in my previous companies, they have looked at SolidWorks, Fusion 360. Either of these two would work because the designers would be working on either of those things. If you have some knowledge about Keyshot, AutoCAD, that is going to be great as well.
Great. So SolidWorks and Fusion 360 both are parametric softwares, and Keyshot is a rendering software. So a designer should know this kind of
It
software.
definitely helps. It definitely helps because it makes your process faster, and it makes collaboration with other key members of the team much easier because they're already working on those.
Great.
So, yes.
I think to add to it, like it is very important to know any 3D software in general. So like in case of Fusion 360 or such softwares, you look at giving an overall technical understanding of the size, the look and feel of the toy. There is also Blender that can be used to give a
Yes.
digital look and feel of the toy with proper rendering. Yes, we do look at softwares, but like on the other hand, it also depends upon industry to industry. So there are large scale industries, there are small scale industries. So when as a young designer, if you're applying to a small scale industry, you have to be a little multitasking. So maybe they might expect you to also look at the packaging side of their brand alongside the product development. So then you need to know certain skills. So for a designer, for sure, even Adobe Creative Suite is something that is recommended. In our case, when we look at hiring a new designer in a small scale setup, we look at how multifaceted the designer is, and at the same time, if you will be willing to handle pressure under certain circumstances. So that is something that we do test. A lot of times we also give design briefs, as Antara said, that we give them a task to look at, and then they have to analyze and then incorporate the skills that they've learned during the course, and then accordingly we make a decision. At this point, I would say that you should always look at upgrading yourself. So of course I will really say that when I was a young designer, the softwares that I learned, now they're obsolete. So you should look at skill enhancement and being able to upgrade yourself as per the industry.
So that means they have to be updated.
Yes.
Right. So here I would like to also mention that Blender is not a parametric software. However, toy designers who are into character design toys, they should use Blender.
Absolutely. It's good for organic shapes.
So now I would like to know what are the types of designers mostly toy design industry look for or recruit.
So, in my experience, if a company is big enough, of course, there are smaller companies where a designer has to wear multiple hats. But if the company is big enough to hire enough people, I have worked with, say, product designers, of course, because you have to make physical products, graphic designers for any kind of graphics that go onto the product, or for any kind of graphics that is going to go with additional material. Then, of course, there are going to be 3D modelers and instruction designers for toys that need explicit instructions, because they need to be easy enough for a child to understand. A lot of the times, a lot of the products are like the parents have to sit with the child while playing the toy because the instructions are so confusing, and that becomes really frustrating. So you have to make sure that the instructions are easy to follow. Then of course there are going to be packaging designers once you get to that stage where you need to package the product. There are going to be product photographers and product engineers when it goes into like the manufacturing stage. And it helps to have a product manager because there are so many people and you kind of have to work
manage
across.
people.
Yes, to manage people, to manage the product. And then there is a project manager to manage the project, not just the product.
Okay.
Which means work with marketing, work with production, make sure everything is happening on time.
Right.
So there are a lot of people involved in making just one product as well.
So there is a specific designer or manager, let's
Yes.
say, who look for production,
Yes.
specifically
Yes.
design and manufacturing,
Yes.
right? And there is one more project
Project manager.
manager
Yes.
who look for uh, product design, manufacturing, maybe logistics,
Sourcing
and
is happening or not.
sourcing of
Yes.
materials and other all aspects.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So, like in my experience, I've also worked with product merchandisers. So, the job of a merchandiser is to bridge the gap between a designer and the production team. So, they look at whether the product will be technically possible to manufacture or not. I've also worked with graphic designers who look at catalogs. They also look at the graphics that might go on the packaging. And yes, like these are two major categories that I have worked with. But then if you look at overall industry, there are separate toy designers and game designers.
Okay.
And then there are project managers, as Antra said. And then based on what kind of toys you're manufacturing, there are also certain industries that look at engineers, because there might be certain technicalities involved in the toy that they might be selling.
Yeah, like for example, if you're trying to make a toy which has coding or any kind of futuristic
Robotics
toy,
toys.
robotics toys. So
Yes,
you will
yes.
probably hire like an engineer who's
Or
going
maybe
to
a
be.
toy which has mechanisms.
Yes. For mechanisms, simple mechanisms, usually a toy designer is equipped enough.
Okay.
But anything like, say, if you want to make a chemistry kit or you want to make like a electronics kit, maybe they will hire like an engineer who's going to be able to collaborate with the toy designer.
So how often they collaborate, or with whom?
The electronics engineers would probably collaborate with a toy designer who is going to manage the entire toy, because in my experience, when just engineers have been hired for things like these, they have not been able to bring in the fun part. For that, a designer who has been explicitly trained to understand what a child
Great.
needs and what is going to be fun, that's very important.
Great.
So, I mean, when we look at out of the box approach, that is where the designer comes into picture. And to add to what Antra said, this completely depends upon what kind of project we are looking at. So, if the brand is expecting to look at a project where they want to develop a certain set of toys that require a technical skill, then it works on contract basis or like a part-time basis for the other fields.
So now my question is on toy design process. So what are the different kind of process they have or they follow?
So in my case, like we look at what is happening in the market. So we do a very thorough market research. A lot of times we also look for inspiration. So we see what is something which is need of the hour or zeitgeist of the current scenario, and accordingly we then start conceptualizing. We make like multiple concepts, and then some of them get scratched out. And once the concept is approved, then we start looking at the technical part of the toy, that how it is supposed to look like, the size. Then of course looking at standardization, and then we make like a 3D model of it, which usually is digital. And once we have 3-4 options there, then we get an approval, then we start developing the samples, and then we get the approval on samples. So there is of course approval at different stages. Once the final sample is approved and it is tested, then we go ahead and manufacture the product.
Right.
So, to add to what Mahi said, research, the amount of research that needs to go into a product, I feel like the later parts are almost the same. The research part is where it differs from what kind of product you're creating. So, if you're going to be creating, say, if you feel like I have X number of products, but my brand does not have this kind of product, which you've seen in the market before, you will do a kind of research where you kind of understand why this product is working for a certain brand and not for another brand. What are the pros and cons? If you're going to be making something from absolutely scratch, then your research is going to be a lot more in depth. You probably might go sit with children, do a field study, understand their likes or dislikes, talk to teachers in terms of if you're planning to, for example, create a STEM toy or an educational toy, you will talk to teachers to understand what kind of things children struggle with. and then try to create a product around that. So the amount of research, the amount of time you spend on research is of course going to be dependent on whether you're making a new product for an existing market, if you're making an existing product for a new market. All of that is going to be dependent on the kind of product. However, like she said, once you have done your research, you come up with a bunch of concepts. In my experience, at the concept development stage, the team will have a meeting. If you have a bunch of designers on your team, if you have somebody heading the team, everyone sits down. They decide from their experience. They might have a certain kind of matrix which they're going to check whether the toy, if in their experience, the toy or the concept is a good concept or not. Once it passes that stage, then you go into prototype development. You might make multiple prototypes for a concept. That might take like 1 to 2 months as well. Once that prototype development happens, there is another discussion. They'll give you inputs on what can make it more exciting or not, or if some kind of mechanism is going to be hard for the child to work with, from again experienced designers, because you have a team. It always helps to talk to people and gather their insights. Then another layer of refinements happen. That is when you take it out for testing with children, whether it's going to work, what are they going to enjoy. You might test it with say 10 to 15 children, depending on the budget of your company, how much they can spend, how much time they have. Once that is done, then there is internal testing. For example, they'll throw the toy from on top of the table
Okay.
to see if it's going to break. They might throw it 5 times. They'll see if some kind of part is difficult to join, if a child might get hurt doing a certain kind of thing. A lot of the times, companies have SOPs or standards that while you're designing a toy, like Mahi said, make sure the corners are rounded. These kind of basic things a designer has to take care of before they even take the toy for testing to the child. Once that is done, then there is further refinement. Then kind of you make your product production ready, and then you start working on other deliverables like a 3D model. Or in my experience, 3D modeling came after the testing with the children, because those models were actually required for packaging or for the instruction manual. In some cases it happens beforehand at the concept development stages, at the concept development stages. But yeah, so then you kind of make your file production ready and you send it off and see what happens.
To add to what Antara said, for a lot of brands, it also depends upon the materiality. So, for example, there might be a brand that only works with a specific material. So, while designing, we also look at certain constraints that we might have when we are using a certain material, which we have to probably take care of before we start designing the toy itself. For example, in case we are looking at a toy that sort of has certain kind of form or shape which is not possible to have in the material that the brand is looking at, then in case you have to be a little responsible and considerate about how do you change or how do you modify the entire form accordingly. In a lot of scenarios, there are also characters, so then you need to look at whether the character resembles some other character, because you might have IPR related issues.
Yes.
So these are certain things that before you start designing, and then of course Antara talked about things that happen after the designing. So these are the things that we usually consider.
Another thing that we consider is during the concept development stage. For example, like she said, there could be a brand who's working in certain materials, but there could be concepts that require you to have new materials. So at the concept development stage itself, you start sourcing. And usually in my experience, it has been the responsibility of the designer who's doing the sourcing at the concept development stage. If it goes to production and then they need another material, then it's the production's headache. But sourcing is another thing that designers need to look out for during the concept development.
And during sourcing, we do consider the price.
Yeah.
So who the product is intended for. If the material is actually going to increase the costing, then of course we have to be a little mindful.
Yeah, of course, during the entire process, costing is going on side by side. Like, it's not a separate process that you do later. Like, while my development is happening, I'm doing costing because I need to make sure that it doesn't cross a certain limit. Like, they usually would give you that this toy should cost under this or around this window.
So it seems that in a toy industry there are many factors that to be considered while toy designing. So if I juxtapose both Antara's experience and Mahi's experience, so in the beginning stage the research happens specifically on play theories, child development, what kind of toys, and user behavior, and many things.
And market research.
And market research, yes, of course. And then it starts with the brief and concept generation. And during concept generation, they also consider the sourcing of materials, standards, and materials, what kind of materials there has to be. So, all these things. And from concept generation it goes for prototyping, and the process for from there it becomes iterative, so multiple prototypes and then testing phase with the users, and finally it goes to the market. So it may take weeks to a year maybe.
Absolutely. In my experience, it's never been weeks, let me say that. But it's definitely been anywhere between 8 months to 14 to 15 months for a toy. Yeah.
To add to it, yes, if you're looking at developing a toy from scratch, then we look at a time span of 6 months. Because, like, the other thing is, you might be at a concept that might be taken over by some other brand. So before they launch it, of course, there's a thread that you have to launch that toy before anyone else does. So of course there's a restriction in terms of how fast you can develop, but then we do have to follow the procedure and standards, which of course takes at least 6 months for from concept to actual in shelf.
Yeah.
Fine. So again, I would like to know something from the designer's perspective. That what are the issues a designer may encounter?
I think one of the major things that we have come across when we look at designers, especially a young designer, which is somebody who just graduated and joined us, is the capability of handling pressure. So, like, this is a no negotiation there, that when you're working, you might have multiple projects running across, and you might have certain days where you might have conflicts, or you might have certain things where you might disagree with the person who is supposed to approve your certain product. So you have to be a little careful in terms of not being very emotional with the designs that you develop. So also you have to be somebody who is a good influencer in terms of how do you market, or how do you say that your product is going to work, or it is something that is the need of the hour, which of course is backed up by research. So to sort of summarize it, is that you don't take things too hard, and of course you should be able to handle pressure or under certain circumstances.
I think what you want to say is that you need to know how to sell yourself.
Yes.
And your concept. So
Yes.
communication skills are definitely key here, and good research definitely helps, because you know what you're talking about. You can't just faff your way through the industry. That doesn't happen, because immediately you'll be able to see the results, whether product is going to pass or fail.
The other thing is, as a toy designer, you don't work in isolation. So you have to collaborate with multiple people from different walks of life, as well as different kind of experience. So then you have to sort of come to a certain understanding with the marketing team, production team, the management, when you are looking at bringing a product or a concept to life. So then you, of course, the communication skills, and of course a little bit of patience, and uh, patience is something that also works there.
Yeah.
Great.
Since you talked
Any other aspects?
So, since you talked about issues, some of the other issues could be, a lot of the times, especially in newer companies, I have felt that they don't have any process standardization. And when a new designer is thrown into a mix like that, there are not very clear boundaries on who is responsible for what. So, and it's very difficult for young designers to know what they should be responsible for and what not.
Right.
So that kind of clarity, when it's not there, it's a little difficult. With good companies I have seen, they have very good standardization process. Like even when they have like detailed SOPs which will tell you what is okay and what is not okay in a product, and that kind of cuts down on the rework process. So if a company sets standards that, oh, this is the edge, this is the circumference of the edge the rounding needs to be done at, right? If a company sets those things beforehand, it makes the designer's job a lot more easier. It like I said, rework is a lot lesser. You don't have to do as much testing, you don't have to talk to as many people. So when there's no standardization, it's a little difficult for the designer. Another thing that I have seen happen a lot is that when separate people are handling the product team and the marketing team, say. So, for example, the product team is being told to make something really innovative. They will pour all of their resources into doing research, trying to create something innovative. But the marketing team has not been hired to sell something innovative.
Okay.
They have been hired with the understanding of we need to sell products, right?
Okay.
They come back with things वो market में तो ये चल रहा है, like this is what is popular in the market. What are you giving me these new things? How will I sell this, right? So when there is this mismatch, it becomes
Or I
really
would say
difficult.
sync.
Yeah,
If there is no sync
There is no
between
sync,
production or product design team and marketing team,
Yes.
then it is a problem.
it is a huge problem because now a marketing, because the product team has passed everything, okay, it is at a stage where it needs to be sold, and the marketing team is like, I can't sell this. So all of that time and all of that energy and money has gone to waste, and the blame comes on the designer.
Ah,
So this is also a systematic problem. Both the things that I'm talking about are systematic problems, not individual problems. The team is not at fault for this, neither the designer nor the marketing team.
uh, if I correct me if I'm wrong, this kind of scenario may happen in new industries or startups.
No, it will happen in old industries also.
Okay.
If they're trying to do something new, right? If they're bringing in new designers, but their marketing team is the old marketing team, or if they've brought in a marketing team which has a certain kind of requirement from the design team, but it has not been communicated to the design team also, that is also a problem. So they need to go kind of hand in hand. The brief needs to be similar. The same kind of conversations need to be happening with both the teams.
So marketing team has fixation that we have this kind of marketing strategies and we will follow that only.
Yes.
And for ages we are following that. So how can you challenge? How can we change it?
Aha, in some cases that happens. The point is that the brief needs to be the same for both. If you're making a new product, you need to brief your marketing team that we are going to be launching a new product. Think of strategies that we can promote it. How will it become, like, how will people be able to see it so that they buy it? So it needs to
So
happen
since
hand in hand.
it came to my mind about fixation, so what kind of scenario you see with the design fixation with the new designers?
Like especially when you're working as a new designer, and let's say you've been for 1 year you've been working on existing products, maybe just to make them look better or only like changing on certain parts of it, and after 1 year suddenly you have like a project where you have to look at something from scratch. So of course, if you're getting an opportunity after so many days where you can say that okay, this product is going to be something which is 100% developed by me, people tend to attach themselves to that product emotionally, and then let's say if it doesn't work out and if it gets rejected, then of course there's a entire scenario where you might feel hurt that okay, this did not work for me. So that is one kind of fixation that we see.
They fall in love
Yes.
with their designs.
And there could be multiple reasons that it's gotten rejected.
Yes.
For like it could be that it will be a successful product, but the company doesn't have the money to launch it right now. That's also possible.
Yes.
Or there is a sudden change in the company management, and they have decided to go in a different
Possible.
direction. That
Very
is also
much
possible.
possible.
If they want to pour in a little more money in another category, because resources are limited, right? Or they need to push another category into production first, and by the time they think of your product, maybe it is redundant. Say it is a Christmas themed product, and they want to, and they don't push it at the right time, then again it becomes redundant for another year. So there could be a lot of reasons that your product might not go into production, and not all of it is going to be your fault.
So designer has to adapt according to the situation.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
I think at this point it's very important that when you're joining a company, you should understand what they're expecting from you. So, like I would really say that if you're joining a company for the first time, at least 3 to 4 months, you take only to absorb what the company is looking at, what they have been before. So, sort of looking at how the company has evolved and probably where do they see themselves in 5 years. And once you're working there, you sort of have to be very observant about what is happening around you, how the other designers who've been there before, how they have been working, which a lot of young designers sort of skip, because many of them come with the thought that okay, I have this skill set that probably nobody else has, or I have this skill set that probably makes me unique from others. But then you have to let go of that ego that you might have with you. So you have to be very grounded when you're going to work with people with different experience level. Maybe some of them might be younger than you, but they might have something new to offer. So yes, you have to be very grounded and
Yes,
thoughtful.
they should be ready always to learn from anyone.
Anybody. Designers should never ever think that we know everything. In fact, nobody should, but designers definitely, because we are continuously learning from our environment and continuously evolving our practices.
So they should know, initially they should understand the culture.
Yes.
Culture in terms of design culture, the culture of the whole industry, their mission, vision, what kind of products they actually would like to project in market, right? So all these things.
And have these conversations with multiple people. Don't just agree with your manager and the manager's brief. Like, talk to different people to kind of understand the company's ethos.
Great. So the last but not the least. So I would like to know, how can a design brand flourish? What design brand or toy industry should do or should not do?
The first thing I think is to understand what you are going to look at, like who are you going to offer whatever you're going to make. Of course, if you're going to look at a local market, or if you're going to look at global market, of course for a startup it is important that they start with local and then they go global. The other thing is to see where do you see yourself, like do you see somebody who's going to make products for mass market, are you going to target your products to a more premium segment, because that will help you to sort of understand what kind of material constraints, design constraints, production process constraints you might have in future. And the other thing is you have to be ethical in terms of all the processes that you apply. I think Antara would be able to elaborate on it better.
So, definitely market segmentation is extremely important. So, in a way, I think from what you're saying, you need to first be sure of your brand identity. And brand identity, it can go like both ways. You can first see the kind of resources you have, and then decide within these resources what kind of product I can launch, what kind of product I can create, and what kind of market is going to accept it. Then you build the entire story around that. You could, of course, be aspirational and decide this is my theme and this is my brand identity, and then do research according to that also. What kind of products do they need? What kind of costing will it require to, make any kind of profit? So definitely market segmentation, what pricing your product is going to be at, all of that is very important. Along with that, not just pricing and product quality, which is definitely important, what kind of language do you need to use within your marketing, within your packaging, so that your customers are more prone to picking your product. That's also very important. So when I say what kind of language, for example, if you're making STEM toys, you would see a lot of keywords that brands use online. They'll talk about brain development,
Oh.
There's no technical thing which is brain development. But parents are looking for words like these online. So this is the algorithm also you need to understand, especially if you're trying to sell online. And right now, any brand which is starting usually starts with online. It's easier to manage and you have more global reach. And online selling does marketing as well as selling. You don't have to pour separate money into that. So that
So some
definitely
of the products
helps.
also I have seen they mention brain gym.
Yes, yes. So all of these are like fancy words, jargon that parents, buyers are going to look at. Um, Apart from that, when it comes to you said processes, right?
Ethics.
Ethics. Of course, ethics in terms of you have to be strict about the kind of product you're selling into the market if you want to maintain a brand image, right? One recall, especially with products which are related to children, one time if you lose the trust of the customer, it is very hard to get it back, especially when it comes to children. Nobody will compromise with their child's health. So that's ethics in our industry is definitely very important.
To add to it, like a lot of like it is a competitive market. There's no negotiation about it. One thing that a customer looks at today is transparency of how your organization works.
Right.
So if you see today, a lot of big brands or MNCs, they look at showing you how their work culture is. I mean, it has nothing to do with the customer. So even a lot of brands in toy industry are looking at how happy their company is internally, because what your internally are is what you will be projecting outside. So of course, one ethical consideration is how transparently, like how transparent your company is in terms of
Communication.
how are you supplying. One thing which is like a buzzword, and it is not just buzzword, it is something that you need to incorporate, is sustainability. So whether your raw material are going to harm the environment, if you're looking at a production process which involves a lot of resource utilization which is going to get wasted. So if you're looking at these things and if you're able to market it well, this becomes like a brownie point for your brand when you're launching it.
A lot of Indian brands are doing this nowadays, sustainable materials and products which are going to grow with your child. It's not a one time purchase.
Exactly.
So, a lot of new brands are kind of placing themselves within that niche and they're doing very well.
So sustainability, like to add to it, sustainability, as she said, is not just in terms of material, it is also in terms of the longevity of the product. We look at a lot of heirloom based toys these days that you pass it down to your future generations. So there are a lot of dolls, there are a lot of
Traditional
products
games.
that you can hold on to, and it sort of passes on generationally. So these are certain things that we look at and we sort of market it in a way that it is sustainable, but also you sort of emotionally attach yourself to the product. Henceforth, your brand's image enhances when you're marketing these things.
Again, this is a very specific brand image kind of thing where these certain brands have positioned themselves like that. There are a lot of brands which are not following all of this and they're doing just fine. So, yeah.
So please put light on some of the things what they should not do.
Yes, so I was just coming to that. When you asked about what is it going to take for a brand to flourish, I'm going to start with what they should do because it came from what they should not do, which is basically what we discussed earlier, having processes. If they follow processes in terms of to go into production, these are the kind of things a toy needs to have passed. To get to this stage, these are the kind of design thinking the designer must have done, right? You can have processes for all of these. If you actually follow these processes, the amount of work and rework reduces significantly, and that automatically means that the amount of time, which is also money, right, that decreases. So the amount of resources you're putting into the product to push it out are lesser, and therefore there is a higher chance for you to make profit out of it.
Right.
With a lot of brands, they just throw a designer into the water and be like, for this age group, just make something, right? Without giving them a brand image, what you're supposed to follow, what are the kind of customers we're looking for. They're expecting the designer to do this kind of research. And when you have 4 different designers doing their separate research, there will be no cohesion for the brand. So for a brand to do well, They first need to establish what they want, then they need to set processes, and then they need to get their team to follow these processes to achieve their goal. Without these processes, you're going to be wasting a lot of time and money to achieve what you could have achieved otherwise.
Right.
The other thing is like blindly following trends.
Yeah.
So maybe you see like 5 major brands doing something and you sort of just go with the bandwagon that okay, they are developing it, so we will also develop it. Whether or not it aligns with your brand's image, the kind of products you're already selling. So always following trends is something that sometimes might not work for a brand, because when you're a brand, you're actually a person with certain kind of personality. Like you have a certain kind of voice, you have a certain kind of visual language. So if I'm following trends, it is never possible that you will be able to maintain that image across. So that is again something that might not work for you. The other thing is I mean, for a brand to look at how they are looking at their internal processes. So a lot of brands or a lot of companies might not be able to work towards the growth of their own employees. So a lot of designers, they might not be growing with the other industries. So you need to look at whether your designers are upgraded or not. So as a brand, it is important to invest in the design team or in the people who are working for you. If you're not able to upgrade your own team, then of course you won't be able to match the standards of the industry when we move forward. So of course, being able to train your employees or
Yeah.
being able to upgrade them with the skill sets that are required today is something that works.
That also adds to the employee's life satisfaction, which means that you will retain the employee.
Yes.
And if you retain the employee, that means you're not getting someone new and you don't have to invest time and money in training them.
Training them.
So that definitely helps to keep your
Yes,
employees
yes.
happy, to keep them updated.
Could you please now put light on costs? Cost in terms of, or comparative costs in terms of what other brands are selling it at what price, right? And what X company is
Right.
selling
Okay.
at what price. So this comparison, how it affects.
Okay. So sometimes it does happen that you look at another brand and you will see that a particular product of theirs is doing really well. Like she said, you've seen this product in 5 different brands and you want to launch it as well. So in that case, a lot of the times, because you're just starting off and you might not have the kind of grounding, which means resources, like people who you're sourcing materials from, right? You might not have that set. And when you're setting these things, the kind of people you get and the kind of MOQs that you're working at means you'll be making smaller batches, might mean that your product will end up being more expensive than what your competitor is selling. And a lot of the times in those cases, the brand decides to not make those kind of profits because they need to compete at that level, and that's absolutely fine while you're picking yourself in that domain. Another thing, I want to go off what Mahi had said earlier, which was basically talking about you want to add something and you don't have that kind of brand language. How will you sell it? So, for example, you're like a brand which specifically sells a certain kind of products and you want to add another category to it. So, for example, you sell art and craft kits, but you want to include STEM kits in your kitty suddenly to expand your market base. That's absolutely fine, as long as you do the research, as long as you understand how do I need to modify my brand to make people trust me in this category as well. So that's definitely important when you're including a new category.
I think to add to what Antara said, so like it is not possible that, let's say, if you're making softwares forever, you're going to make it. You might want to venture into other aspects.
Categories also.
Exactly. So in that case, the positioning of the product has to come into work. So let's say if I am positioning my products in a certain way, if I have another segment that goes as a very different language when it goes out to the market. There are a lot of brands that also have multiple segmentation in terms of price distribution. So they sell mass market products, but at the same time they're also selling luxury goods. So in that case, the way you will market or you will have the entire visual language of the luxury goods will be different from what you're doing in mass market.
Absolutely.
in that case, what you will communicate to the consumer will be how the other segment is different in terms of material, in terms of the quality, and of course in terms of exclusivity. So that also talks about distribution, where we look at how and where the product is supposed to be sold. So let's say if I'm selling a product through Amazon, it's very difficult to market a Amazon based product at a premium segment. But if I have a different segmentation and if I'm marketing it through curated channels such as maybe some expos or certain pop-up stores, then of course it completely changes how the product looks like and who the product is going to reach to. So of course there's multi-level of targeting a certain brand, but with the kind of offerings you have for different segmentation. And that is where you keep in mind that okay, if I'm selling 4 different types of products in terms of price segmentation, it has to go through different distribution channels, and the way it is supposed to be marketed will differ from each other.
Great.
Another micro issue that I would like to discuss is that a lot of the times designers as briefs, who are we considering when we are designing the toys for? We're considering the child. We're considering the child's development level, right? What will they need at that particular point of time? But the child is not the person who's buying the product. It's the parent who's buying the product.
Parents.
So then there becomes this mismatch of what is good for the child, but what are the parents looking for? So what might be good for the child is might be like, say they need to work on like fine motor skills, they need a lot of gross motor movement, jumping around, etc. But the parent, influenced by the market, is looking for coding toys,
Ah,
right?
yes.
So this is also a mismatch that sometimes happens between, for a designer, between what is required for the child and what the parent is looking for.
Ah,
And marrying that is tricky for a new designer sometimes. For an experienced designer, you kind of understand what are the, like I said, buzzwords, or what are the kind of in not in terms of design language, what are the kind of things a parent is going to look for when they pick up a product. So you have to kind of add those things with what is going to be good for the child and fun for the child.
great. So, wonderful. So, let us conclude this discussion here. So, in this discussion, we discussed from the perspective of industry, what is their culture, what kind of process they follow, materials, standards, and what they should do and what they should not. And moreover, we also looked from the perspective of designers as well, what kind of things they should do, and after joining an industry or industry, look for what kind of designer, right? So hope this discussion will be helpful for you. So see you in the next lecture.